It's always nice to see reactions from people's faces and see who we're speaking to. Yeah, right. So let's get cracking. Got a got quite a packed hour for you, so I'm going to try and keep to time and try and get everything in. There's a couple of people just joining while I'm speaking. But yeah, just to give you a bit of context, really appreciate you all joining. It's nearly the end of August, which is mad, and it feels crazy to be talking about 2026, but it will literally be here before we know it. And we deliberately put this session in today for August because so many of I suppose many of the businesses that I've worked in, and so many of the clients that we work with, they often have grand plans about, what they want to do next year, how they want to grow, what growth looks like for them. But before you know it, time slips away, and it gets to January, and we're starting to think about how are we going to deliver the plans that we've got. So, what we try and get into a rhythm with clients is for them to start thinking early, to start doing all the planning early, get everything in place so that when January comes, we're actually into implementation. We're not in thinking mode. We're not going to be waiting another 6 weeks, 2 months to start delivering any action. We're actually going straight into launch mode. So that's kind of why we put that in today. So for us, August, September is thinking time, and we then get into that kind of campaign development phase in the autumn to be able to then go live in January. And that's kind of the rhythm that we want to explain today, and to give you a few things to help with that process, essentially, really. So that's kind of what we're going to cover. We want to try and make it as interactive as possible. Obviously, it's an online session. We'll be doing a few live polling. I'd love to get some interaction throughout the session. If you've got questions, feel free to put your hand up, ask a question. We'll probably be going through quite a lot of things. Some of it you may have some queries around, so please feel free to get involved, share your thoughts on it. Bit of housekeeping. I do have a 8-year-old cockapoo under my feet. The postman may arrive and chaos may ensue. So I may have to mute at some point, but let's hope not. Um, Firstly, I just want to kick off with a few stats. So we did a load of research last year with our community, and did a top up on this earlier in the spring as well. Just kind of around perception, around kind of planning for marketing, and got some statistics to back it up. I'll share a few of them with you. 72% of them didn't have a long-term marketing plan. They were very reactive in what they were doing, just kind of ad hoc. They didn't have a plan that was kind of in line with their overall kind of business objectives. Nearly 60% actually didn't know what they were doing and how that was performing. Spending a lot of time just getting stuff out there, not really sure what it was delivering. Nearly 50% thought their message wasn't powerful enough to resonate with their audience. 40% weren't sure that their team actually had the skills they needed to execute the plan. 67% thought they were lacking the right technology, or weren't sure about the technology that they could use to make things simpler. And nearly 60% relied heavily on referrals for generating new business, as opposed to having a really proactive plan. So I suppose this is the context with which we're trying to work towards today. We're trying to think about how do we go about building a marketing plan which is focused, where you know what you're going to be delivering, what kind of campaigns you're going to be delivering, that they're in line with your overall objectives for the business, that you have the people and the tech to help make execution seamless, and that you go into a much more proactive mode rather than a reactive mode, to generating what you want to achieve. So that's kind of what we want to achieve today. This is the agenda. We want to go kind of dig deep into how you understand whether your marketing plan is actually fit for purpose. Some tools and calculators to help you understand results. This is going to be kind of a section focused very heavily on planning and the kind of commercial aspects of it, and kind of how you then use that information to measure performance. I've got a couple of little sections on AI and a little demonstration I want to share with you, which hopefully might be useful. And like I said, around kind of KPI measurement, which will be kind of throughout the session. So, firstly, preparation. Um, I shared some resources with you. I'm going to be using them today. It'd be great if you have them up in front of you and you can use them, whether you've got them printed out or you've got them on the screen. But they are there for you to kind of take away and use after the session, but I'll kind of be talking you through them. You might also want a pen and paper just to take some notes and to jump in if you've got any questions throughout it. I'm going to start with a quick poll, if that's okay. We've got a few polls throughout the session. This one is designed just to get an understanding of where you are within the business right now. So, which of these statements is most applicable to your business right now? Our business is diversified or evolved, so our marketing plan needs a review. We know where we're headed and we're working on campaigns to get 2026 moving. We know where we want to go, but we're a bit lost about how to get there. I'll just give you a couple of seconds. Hi, Scott. Nice to join us. You haven't missed much. Just did a quick introduction and a poll for you to get involved in. Nice to see you. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Cool. Just give this a couple more seconds. Okay, I'll end that there. So yeah, interesting to see some of these results. Hopefully you can see me sharing that now. Good mix. I suppose what's notable quite here is that a lot of you know kind of where you want to go, but a bit unsure about how to get there. Hopefully the session today and then excuse me, the follow-up session that we've got next week will provide a bit more clarity around that and give you a bit of a steer of how to move on. Cool. So the first section we're going to be running is all around knowing your numbers. Okay, so this is really important, I think, as a starting point. Like I said when I sort of opened up today, a lot of businesses that we work with are kind of in a very very reactive mode. They're just kind of getting content out there and being present without really understanding what they want to achieve and how what they're doing is actually helping them achieve those aims. So I've got another little poll just to run into this section, just to get your take on this. So, which of these statements is most applicable to your businesses right now? We run targeted campaigns in line with our growth plan. We run campaigns, but they tend to lose momentum. Marketing lacks direction and just keeps visibility ticking along. Or we're not really doing any marketing. I'll just give you a few seconds on that just to give us an understanding. Excellent. Yeah, really interesting. I suppose this kind of supports what I explained to start with. The vast majority of people, I suppose, here are kind of in that space of either being really active but kind of fizzling out, or just chucking stuff out into the world and not really sure how it's helping them. So we want to try and get out of that mode so we can be really, really productive. Thanks for sharing that. That's really helpful. Okay. Couple of examples. This is obviously Glastonbury. It's obviously very different to a lot of your businesses here, but it's an example just to share a concept and a methodology, really. So Glastonbury, every year it runs, sells out in minutes. Okay. And yes, it's a festival that everyone wants to go to, and it's been running for years, and everyone looks forward to it with anticipation. However, in terms of thinking around their marketing plan, what they're absolutely excellent at is designing campaigns that have key elements that drive awareness, they drive engagement, and they drive people um, to register and book tickets. So they have a process which starts a year in advance, right? It kind of starts with wrapping up the previous festival, starts planning the next festival, and they have a really, really clear funnel. What they know is how many tickets they've got to sell every year. I think it's around 200,000. To sell those tickets, what they actually do is they get people to pre-register. So they have this huge swathe database of people that are interested in attending. They've given all their details and registered to get access to tickets. So all of their campaigning across social media, across all of their media activity, their paid advertising, all of the different channels that they use is designed to get people to register their interest in booking a ticket. So that when it comes to actually launching the availability of those tickets, they are way over capacity already. They know that I think they typically get, a couple of million people register to be able to buy only about 200,000 tickets, right? So they've pre-sold. They know they're going to sell it out every year because they've generated that much interest that they're able to just launch those tickets and they sell out in a heartbeat. And they have this very considered marketing plan to help them get there. They know the time period, they know when those tickets are going to go on sale, when they need to be sold out by. They know when registration starts. They have a campaign that's designed to drive that pre-registration. And it's a very thoughtful process to make sure that every year they sell out every time. And they kind of start to leak artists throughout that period so that they're building more and more anticipation to drive all those pre-registrations. So Glastonbury is just a fantastic example in terms of like campaign methodology, but most importantly in terms of how they know the numbers they want to achieve and how they design this marketing plan to help them deliver those numbers. I've got another little example from a completely different business called the Do Lectures. Do Lectures in a similar way. They run it's an education and kind of development based business. They run an event every year where they only have 100 tickets available. Okay. And again, it's kind of an event-based business that I'm using as an example here. But I think the methodology is applicable to every business and every type of campaign. But so Do Lectures run this event every year. To deliver that 100 tickets, they have a very considered marketing plan again. They have a really engaged list of email subscribers, which they keep nurtured through just really great content. The email content that they deliver, I really highly recommend you go and sign up for their emails because they're always beautifully written, really helpful, really kind of inspiring, and they keep the engagement throughout the year. And they keep dropping in little nuggets about this potential event that they're going to run. And they get people to pre-register. They actually get people to go through quite a process to fill in a questionnaire about why they should attend this event and what value they're going to bring to it, to kind of create that sense of exclusivity around it. Um, but again, they have a very thoughtful marketing plan. They know when they want to sell those tickets. They know how much those tickets need to sell for and how many they need to sell to make sure it's profitable. And they know when they want to sell out by. And as such, they go through a process of creating demand, getting people to pre-register, launching the tickets at a time when they've already got people interested. To enable them to sell out every time. And it's a really nice process that they go through in order to make sure that those events are successful. So these two principles, or like I say, although I'm using events-based companies as an example, what they are a great example of is campaign methodology, understanding the numbers behind what the business wants to achieve, and then having a really focused campaign period where different things happen in order to generate awareness, generate interest and engagement, and then be able to ultimately sell products or services. I suppose in terms of the group here today, I know there's a variety of different businesses here, and there's quite a few businesses in like financial services, credit union sectors. I think these processes can be very applicable to what you do, even though your aim is to drive membership and to drive new customers from that perspective. You can still use this campaign methodology to create that big interest in a product or service that you've got to offer, to be able to drive growth throughout the year. Does that all make sense to everyone so far? Any questions? So I've got a little activity, which is one of the attachments that I shared with you. I'm just going to stop sharing this screen and go on to my Excel document, just to talk you through this and how you can use this when you take it away with you. Give me 2 secs, let me just reshare. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Let me just press share. Can everyone see an Excel document? Yeah, thumbs up, brilliant. Okay, so this little Excel document that I shared with you is a really useful little tool to help you think about the numbers that are going to sit behind your marketing plan, essentially. This is a campaign calculator. So let's imagine that we want to run a campaign in the first quarter of next year to drive a thing. You know, it could be that you're a professional services business and you want to generate 10 new customers, 100 new customers. It could be that you want to generate X amount more membership for your credit union. It could be around online sales. You want to generate £200,000 worth of online sales. This calculator is a starting point to help you work out the numbers that you want to, that are you're going to need to track to be able to know whether you're on track to achieving those objectives. So a few things that I want to explain here. So to start with, we've got a placeholder here for a marketing budget. Let's imagine we're going to allocate £10,000 to this campaign. That's what we've got to play with as a business, and this is what we want to use to drive the results that we're delivering. The next cell here is how much revenue we actually want to generate. I've put in an arbitrary figure in here, £300,000. This is what we want to deliver as part of this campaign. We've also got a field here about what our average revenue per client is per year. So I'm kind of imagining here, this could be like a service-based business. For every client, they generally earn around £25,000 a year from that client. And we've got a couple of ratios that we've added in here too. So let's imagine we're a business that delivers a presentation, and as a result of that presentation, people then sign up for quite a big product or service. Around 30% of those people that are delivered a presentation actually go on to buy. And another statistic here, typically the amount of leads that we get in, around 60% of those leads turn into people that we're actually able to pitch a product or service to become a potential customer. So a few simple statistics here that you can kind of play with. What the calculator then does is create a bit of a plan for you based on what you need to deliver. So these are the figures that were inputted here. So we want to generate £300,000 worth of revenue. Our average customer value is £25,000. The budget that we've got for this campaign is 10,000. This is a starting point. Now this little calculator is now telling us, okay, we need to generate 12 new customers. So 12 times £25,000 is £300,000. So we need to generate 12 new customers. We want to generate 40 presentations. So to deliver 12 new customers, we actually need to pitch our presentation to 40 potential customers. This is based on this 30% conversion rate here. We actually need to then qualify 67 people, 67 potential customers to actually make sure that we're delivering our presentation to the right number of people. As such, we probably need to engage about 200 potential customers, which is, starting to have those conversations. Perhaps they're downloading some content or attending a webinar, or generating some kind of interaction with you. And then kind of at the top of that funnel, to get people to engage with you to that level, we probably need to start reaching out to about 1,000 people. So what we've done here is basically create a bit of a sales funnel. If we get awareness from about 1,000 people, we'll likely be able to engage about 200, we'll be able to qualify about 67, we'll be able to deliver 40 presentations, and we'll be able to convert 12 customers. So this is our calculator for a campaign, basically. And will enable us to then start to think about what activity are we going to do, which is going to drive these numbers, and how can we use these numbers to generate some meaningful results, but also be able to hold our campaigns to account. Are we delivering these numbers? And if not, why not? How can we change our approach to make sure we do so? Talked about a lot of numbers there. I'm sure there'll be some questions. Does anyone have any questions around any of that before I move on, or does that make sense? Polly?
Yeah, I guess how do you know how much of your marketing budget to allocate to a campaign? That's
I
You're
knew that.
nodding, so I think you're reading what someone meant.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be the question. It's a really good point, and I think businesses go about this in a very different way. So, for some businesses, it depends where that number has come from. For some businesses, their finance team goes, right, marketing team, you've got £100,000 to spend this year. Go and spend it wisely. Not the best way to do it, because they don't know. They don't know the numbers. They're probably just finding an arbitrary number somewhere. On the flip side, what we should be doing is thinking around, right, we understand our kind of ratios and how we go about generating customers. Over previous months and years, we've learned that if we spend X in these different areas, this is typically what a new customer acquisition will cost. Therefore, to generate 100 new customers, we need to times that number by 100, and it will give us our top level marketing budget. In reality, it's a combination of a bit of the two, because, depending on what business you're working in, marketing will always come back and say they want more money. Finance will always say you can't have that much money, and you have to work somewhere in between. But I think it's around really understanding what has worked before and trying to scale that, but then also taking into account new ideas, new channels that you actually want to subscribe some budget to be able to continue that learning platform. It's not always massively easy. What I would say, though, is a kind of good rule of thumb is to kind of think about a number based on what your acceptable cost per sale would be, and that could be completely different for every business. If you're an e-commerce business, it might be 10% of every sale you're willing to attribute to marketing spend. If you've got a business which only needs to sell 5 products a year and they're all £100,000, you might be much more liberal as to how you want to allocate marketing spend. So it very much depends on the type of business. So I haven't really answered the question, I'm afraid, but I think it comes from really understanding what's worked before, and also kind of what's achievable within the business. And I think for a lot of businesses, they need to think about budget in a campaign perspective as opposed to a 12-month calendar year. Really learning what's worked, think about what the next campaign is, and kind of allocating budget that way, rather than having a really fixed mentality towards budget, because business changes every day. Budgets should really change every day as well, I feel. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think it's difficult when you don't necessarily have the data to, but yeah, I guess you just have to try things and see what works, right?
Testing, forecasting, testing in small ways, and kind of trying to extrapolate meaningful information, and trying to forecast as much as possible, I suppose, is the key. So that's the starting point. I think I'll take this spreadsheet away and kind of adapt it for your own particular businesses. And hopefully that's useful. I'm just going to swing back to my presentation for the next bit. Give me a thumbs up if you can see slide deck. Brilliant. Okey-doke. Cool. So how do we go about using that information? So bit of a summary. That kind of calculator approach gives us a starting goal. We understand what we need to achieve, and therefore we can kind of work backwards. Thinking about your ratios is really important as part of this. So depending on what type of business you are, this will always be slightly different. But if you can understand what it's going to take to get from somebody being interested in a product and actively pursuing the detail around purchasing that product or service, the percentage of those that actually go on to buy, and then trying to reverse engineer some of those ratios as well to say, right, if we know that percentage of people will actually buy if they get to see it, how many people are actually then thinking about or in that consideration phase? What's the percentage of people that go from not interested at all to very interested to I'm willing to spend some money? I think working on those ratios is very helpful. And then you can work backwards to put some numbers around that. And once you've kind of thought about this process, you can then create some KPIs, key performance indicators, that you can use throughout your campaigns or throughout your marketing activity to actually track whether you're on course to achieving those aims and adapt where possible. And I suppose that's where budget comes into play as well, because if you're not delivering the top level numbers, that could be for a number of different reasons. It could be because your campaign activity isn't generating that interest, but it could be that you don't have enough budget to generate enough reach. So if you're not getting in front of enough people at the top of the funnel, then you're unlikely to deliver the actual cold hard cash that you need at the bottom of the funnel. And that's where you might need to kind of rethink budget and how that's applicable. Cool. So bit of an introductory session around knowing your numbers. Next session is about how do we go and get some evidence around how marketing is currently performing to influence, excuse me, to influence that thought process. Like, how do we know what's working now and how is that impacting marketing in general? So I would suggest that now is the perfect time to go and have a look at all the different channels that you're working with and understand what's working, how it's working, and how it's influencing things. It's the perfect time, especially being a quieter period for most businesses over the summer, to get kind of stuck into the data and start learning. So we should be reviewing activity so that we can understand what's working, what's not, so that we can become more efficient, so we can enable some proper data-driven decision making rather than just finger in the air assumptions, and to help us release budget more confidently. So if we know what's working and how that's helping the overall plan, we can prioritize where we're spending money. So I've got another little poll just to understand this a little bit more. I'll just launch this now. So how often do you review your marketing performance? This will be an interesting one. Never, once a year, every 6 months, monthly, ad hoc. Once a year, never. Interesting. Okay, I'll just end that there. Interesting. A few people never. That's scary. A few people once a year, also a bit scary. A good mix of people who kind of ad hoc and monthly. I suppose what I would suggest around this is getting into a real rhythm around how you're measuring, what you're measuring, and how you're and how frequently you go about measuring performance. That calculator activity at the start should help inform some really core KPIs that you're going to use to actually measure performance as you go through the year or through a campaign. You should be using those numbers frequently to actually understand whether you're on track or not. Ultimately, if you've got a big aim, perhaps you want to generate a certain amount of new customers or a certain amount of revenue, you should be looking to break that down over a year, probably, or over a campaign period. And as such, you need to have regular points where you're actually reviewing whether you're on track to achieving that or not. Because if not, you'll likely get to the end of the period or the end of the year, not hit it, but have missed all the opportunities to address it over that period. So I would always recommend getting into a really good drumbeat of monthly performance reviews. If you're focused on kind of an annual marketing plan, if you're focused on a very much a focused campaign period of maybe 2 or 3 months to deliver a certain objective, then a much more frequent kind of drumbeat over that period, with a start and end point where you have a full review of that plan. But that's kind of what I would suggest, like regular touch points, and then probably a biannual or an annual like deep dive review of everything, how you've achieved what the business wanted to achieve over that period, deep dive into all the channels and tools that you're using, thinking more around not just results, but also around what's worked well operationally, what's worked well in the team, what's been developed that you didn't have before, what's going to help you in the next year or over the next campaign period. So really thinking around like conceptually what's worked, but also tactically what's worked as well. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. Next question is to what depth, okay, which a few of you have answered. So top level marketing stats, conversational anecdotal evidence, in-depth analysis year on year. So you can see from some of these results, I suppose, that a lot of people are relying very much on conversational anecdotal evidence. I think there's a massive place for that. There's so much, we can kind of get lost in the data. There's so much data available out there that it's often easy to go down rabbit holes with it. So I think kind of conversational evidence is always really, really good. I think then you need to back that up with something, right? Because it's always comes down to, in a lot of businesses, who shouts the loudest, who's got the biggest opinion that ends up getting what they want. And it might not always be what the customer wants. So I would say, yes, take on that evidence, probably from people within the business, but also ask customers, right? Ask customers through surveys, through pulse surveys, through focus groups, get their perception on your marketing activity, but back that up with some deeper data. So go digging into some statistics and try and understand whether that anecdotal evidence is legitimate or it's just the voice of someone who shouts the loudest. But that's really interesting to see what the perception is across the team. What should we be reviewing? So, like I said a little while ago, everything. So, yes, we should be reviewing, what's working from a channel perspective, what content's resonating, what tactics are we using that's actually making a difference. But we should also be thinking around tracking, like, are we tracking things properly? Are we tracking all the numbers that we need to track to make sure that we're making the right decisions? So I would say a regular review on what we're tracking and how you're tracking it, whether that's digitally or whether that's kind of in terms of your general business processes, making sure that you've got the evidence to back up what's happening. Team development, team operational performance, efficiencies, how you're working as a drumbeat of a marketing team, like what's becoming more efficient, how are you using technology, how are you using different types of tools to get more done or be much more focused within what you're doing. So I think there's always a place for a regular review of just general kind of performance in general, rather than kind of always getting stuck into the tactics that you're already using and how that's working, because there's always going to be ways that you can free up time or free up effort and energy to be able to try new things and be much more focused in how you're working. A few little ways, I'm sure a lot of you are experimenting with all sorts of different things from an AI perspective, but I think there's a few ways that you can kind of really speed up this analytical piece by using the technology that's available to you. I've provided like 5 simple little ways that you can use AI to help with kind of digesting data and doing something meaningful with it. That's what it's really great for. I think if there's anything that really saves tons of time, it's about adding lots of deep data into ChatGPT or whatever tool you're using, and getting it to do the crunching for you and getting it to come up with some summaries, some trends, some recommendations around it. So I won't demonstrate all of these today. You can go away and think about it. But what I've done is provide a few examples and kind of example prompts to kind of help. So for example, data interpretation and storytelling. Here's a prompt. Take last 6 months of Instagram engagement. So imagine that you're extracting all that engagement from Instagram, downloading it as a CSV, upload it into ChatGPT and ask it to summarize performance, identify trends, suggest reasons for possible performance changes. Like, get it to crunch that data and start helping you get to a point of doing something with it rather than kind of getting lost in it. If you can get it to that point, it saves tons of time and gives you some real meaningful things to actually use your human brains and use that anecdotal evidence and use your team's expertise to be able to focus on what can make some impactful changes, as opposed to kind of just getting lost in reams of data. Comparative analysis is really useful. So if you've got 2 things or 3 things, get it to compare. So I've used the example of email campaigns here. So let's imagine we've downloaded the results from a couple of email campaigns, getting it to compare what's worked better than others based on that information. So what subject lines work best, and come up with some trends, what content works best, things like that. Really useful, really quick. Helping you benchmark performance. That's a great way to use it. So getting it to suggest some realistic targets based on previous performance of campaigns, getting it to recommend kind of KPIs that you can work within. There's a couple more here. Content and creative performance insights. So let's imagine that you've created a load of content. You can copy and paste that content that you've created. So that could be captions, headlines, email copy, along with some previous engagement data, and get it to identify some traits of what is high performing content and get it to suggest some tweaks around underperforming content styles. That's a really nice thing to do if you're working hard on creating content, trying to get it to make improvements based on previous performance. Knowing what has worked in the past is really useful. And what if scenarios is a quite nice one as well. So if you've got a load of campaign data that you've downloaded from various different tools that you've used before and uploaded that into the system, start prompting it and asking it, what would happen if we did X, Y, and Z. So let's imagine that you've imported a load of data from Google Ads campaigns. What would happen if we increase ad spend by 20%? Or if we managed to increase our engagement rate by 5%, how would that impact our forecast? So little things like that really help speed up that analytical process to help getting you to a point of meaningful decision making, rather than kind of like getting lost in the data. So a few ideas that you can kind of take away there. It's quite helpful. Bit of a summary there. I'll leave you to kind of take this away with you. I'll share all these slides, but just a bit of a summary. I'm gonna just skip through these next couple of slides because I want to get through to a demonstration that I'm going to do. But I suppose this section is mainly around technology and how vast it is, right? I know a lot of the clients that we work with and the businesses that I've worked in kind of get stuck in using the same things they've always used. It's very difficult sometimes to have the time to think about what new tech is out there that can make your life easier, or whether you're still using best of breed. If you are already maxing out existing technology and you're not really sure what else is out there that you can get some real gains from. This slide is a infographic of all the different marketing technology that's out there in the world, probably out of date already, but you can see from it that it's vast. There's just so much different technology out there. So I suppose the key takeaway from this is you might be using things right now. There's probably something out there that's better or newer or tailored to some particular task that you've got. Take this opportunity, go and explore. Perhaps there's better ways of doing things and simpler ways of doing things, and some technology that can really help you with that. And what if there is some downtime right now in terms of this summer period? Go and research. Perhaps there's some challenges around some of the tech that you're using. Perhaps you're frustrated with it. Perhaps you just don't know if there's something better out there. Go and explore and see what's available. Again, probably an out of date little infographic. This is particularly focused on AI and marketing related AI. There is tons, right? There's so many different tools and they're coming out every day. Take the chance to go and explore and go and Google what's out there. Go and follow people. I did a great course last year with an organization called Mindstone, which was an AI focused course. They have a great newsletter, and they maybe every week, maybe more frequently than that, they release new tools that are out there to go and explore. Highly recommend going and checking that out, because there's always something out there which can really help you be much more efficient. I'm going to skip over that little poll because I'm conscious of time and I want to get to this section, which is all about personas. So, who knows what a persona is out of the group here? Who uses them? Bit mixed. Okay, for those that don't understand what a persona is, a persona is essentially like a fictitious and imagined version of who your ideal customer is, so that you can really picture who it is you're selling to, what are the challenges that they're experiencing, what do they look like in terms of their age, their demographic, their job roles, their life experiences, how they like to be communicated to, all of those kind of characteristics, so that you as a marketeer can really focus what you're doing, what marketing you're creating, how you're delivering it, what messaging that you're creating and how that's going to resonate, how you're targeting them, where they're being targeted, etc. This is a way to really condense our understanding of our ideal customer. Little example here, I've created this archetype of a tech entrepreneur persona, Alex. So it's got a bit of an overview of who he is, his background, his goals, his challenges, his personality traits, and his buyer behavior. So a really simple little persona here. But I wanted to show you how AI is really helpful for this, right? And how it can really help streamline your marketing activity and help you be much more tailored and more efficient with how you're developing plans for your various different personas that you're working with. So I'm actually going to come out of this for a second and take you to my browser. Just give me a sec. Okay, thumbs up if you can see my browser. Okay, so I've created a really nice little guide to help you use ChatGPT to create a persona in the first instance for your potential customers, but then to create a custom GPT so that you can always use to prompt and to queue questions around how your persona might respond to various different things. And I'll demonstrate that in a minute. This is the prompt. So essentially, we want ChatGPT to act as a marketing strategist. We're going to ask it to upload data. So if we have some data about our customers, we can upload that into the system and to help it frame a better understanding of our potential customer. For the example that I've got today, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to share a little bit of general information, but we can upload more data if we have that around that customer. And then I want it to create a persona template. I want it to provide name, job titles, a short bio, background, responsibilities, goals, motivations, pain points, challenges, personality traits, preferred marketing channels, buyer behavior, etc. The nice thing I've added in here as well, typical objections to buying and a day in the life scenario. This is really, really helpful. If you know why your potential customer may not want to use you, because for various different reasons, it helps you develop messaging and content and a whole approach to address those problems. And the day in the life scenario also super helpful because it helps you picture what are they up to on a day-to-day basis and how can our marketing kind of resonate with them, and also just to get an understanding of where they're at. So that's the template, and then I've provided a little bit of information. So I've created a potential customer who works in a sustainable homeware brand. They're a buyer in that industry. There's a little bit of information about, I suppose, anecdotal evidence about what we know about that customer. Okay, so I filled all this in, and then what we want to do is use ChatGPT. So I'm going to skip over to here. Can everybody see ChatGPT? Yeah. Okay, so I did this last night just in preparation. So firstly, what I've done is I've just pasted all of that information into ChatGPT. Okay, and then it's asked me, okay, let's take a breath. Firstly, can you upload some more data just to help me understand this person in more detail? And it's given me some examples of what I could upload, which is really helpful. I'm not going to do that today because we don't have time. But that is something that you can do to kind of give it a more well-rounded. Now it's given me like a draft persona based on what I've provided. So it's given me a name, roles, responsibilities, goals and motivations, etc. And then it has said, right, do you want me to go and provide some more information? So I'm just going to say, no, I'm not going to bother doing anything else. That's a great starting point. We've got this really simple persona that it's created. So this is a great starting point. You can start to prompt this. So if you've got ideas around marketing strategies, or if you want it to start thinking around content that you want to create for this persona, this is a great place to start. But what I wanted to show you today was how we can then use this to create a custom GPT. Is anyone using them at the moment? Has anyone created any custom GPTs? So custom GPT is great. So imagine at the moment you've got, you might be using ChatGPT and just making prompts. What you can do is create a custom GPT. So I've got one. I've got one here that you can see. This one is programmed to think like me, but also to challenge me. So I can go and prompt it and get it to help me with making certain decisions. But it's brilliant for creating custom GPTs for personas. So basically what it will be is like a little mini marketing strategist that understands your persona in vast detail, which you can then go to for any particular challenge that you've got. And it will always be able to then think in the world of your persona and help you be very specific in terms of how you're marketing. So I'm just going to copy all of this information just as a starting point. And I'm just going to nip over here. So can everyone see this sustainable home buyer? Yeah. So I created this custom GPT, and I'll tell you how to do that in a second. And I'm just going to go into edit. So in the Word document I shared, I gave you basically a simple template to be able to create a custom GPT for this persona. And I'll talk you through that shortly. I'm just going to paste this in. So basically, I'm giving it some instructions, and I'm saying, right, this is a persona for our sustainable home buyer. Act like our core buyer so we can use it to refine our marketing plan. And then I'm giving it a template to follow. So always follow this process. The goal is to answer the questions based on the information you have as accurately as possible. Here's a load of top-level information about our persona. And then I'm going to ask it, let me just open this up a bit more detail. What this custom GPT is going to follow a certain process. So based on the information I've provided, always ask me one question at a time to help develop deeper reasoning. Search the internet for more relevant information based on my profile. Walk me through reasoning step by step. Answer the query as well as you can. And there's various different things in here that I've asked it to do, which will help it work for me much better. Okay. So now I've done that, I can update it. Okay, so now this is basically a little mini marketing strategist that knows my buyer inside and out. And I can start to queue it and prompt it with various different things. So let's say we just nip to some questions. Let's use this as an example then. So I provided in the slide deck a few example questions that you can use to help work with a custom GPT like this. So I'm going to start with this. So which tone of voice would make you trust us more? Okay, so this has come up with the first question, which is really, really useful. So do you mean in the context of supplier outreach, email proposals, or more broadly, brand tone of voice? Okay, so I'm going to say brand tone of voice. So basically what this is doing is asking me, right, as a persona, like what tone of voice as a brand is going to be most resonant to this person based on what information that we've provided to it, obviously. Okay, so now it's saying, right, as Sophie Green, the name of the persona it's created, I'm really wary of greenwashing. I don't have much patience. My trust is earned when brands communicate in a way that is transparent, professional, but human, detail-driven, forward-thinking. It's told you the reasoning behind that, because that's one of the cues that I asked it to provide. And it's given me like a nice, simple tone of voice guidelines for this particular persona. So I suppose in general, I know I've just whistled through this in 5 or 10 minutes, but what I'm showing you here is basically what we've done is created a little mini marketing strategist for this particular persona, and we can go and question this and try and use it to start developing anything in relation to this marketing plan. I could go and ask it, right, think of 5 blogs that are going to be perfect for this audience to help them build trust in us as a company, and be used for generating traffic from organic search. I could ask it, what would make you get to a buying decision fast? Or I could ask it, here's a draft email campaign. Do you think this is going to resonate to my audience? And it's going to help me refine it. And where I think this is really useful is speeding up again that decision-making process and getting to a point of delivering content quicker. And what I wouldn't suggest is you take all of this verbatim and use it exactly how ChatGPT delivers it. But what I would say is a great way of kind of coming up with ideas, ratifying ideas, testing concepts, and refining in a really quick way. So really, really useful. There's more detail in the takeaway that I've given you. And again, it's something that you can just go and start experimenting with. But hopefully that's a useful example of how you can start to use some of these tools to be much more efficient in terms of developing campaigns and developing reasoning around some of those campaigns. And now I went through that really fast. Does anyone have any questions around any of that? No, either that means everyone's mind's blown, or two, I delivered it really well. Let's hope it's the latter. Cool. So I think I'm going to leave it there today. There's a few other little bits I wanted to go through, but I'm conscious of time. And next week, we're going to do a separate session, which is more around how do we take all of the insight that we may have gathered around thinking around objectives for marketing plans, understanding the research that's gone into it, and actually start making it happen, right? And how do we start building out campaign plans and being very much more tactical in the way that we're working? So that's kind of what we've got set up for next week. So hopefully you'll be able to join us next week. I think now we've got plenty of time to take some questions. So if you've got any thoughts around anything that we've been through today, we have got time for a Q&A, and I've got a few things to point you towards after today's session. But over to you guys, I suppose. Fire away while you got time. Has anything really resonated today? Has anything been complicated? Is there any burning questions about any particular section? Scott?
Yeah, we do obviously something very bespoke and with a very ad hoc buying decision process, right? So like, so what do you think the risks are in terms of like, we're looking at, and also we're incredibly personalized compared to like our main competitors. Yeah. So we are looking at like what AI can do to help build parameters or to help keep us structured because we get very busy. But I'm a bit concerned that we have very ad hoc data, so it's very difficult to know like how much to like rely on the input of AI to help us with that. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on
it. Sorry, summarize that again.
But basically, people buy our holidays as and when, right? We can't say it's not like every March our repeat customer comes back and buys a holiday. Yeah. So we're trying to put structure in so that we have visibility and we have like to maximize our exposure because at the moment there's an element of people see our name and phone us for a holiday. But because we've got such limited data, I'm conscious of like over relying on putting that into AI to help us generate something to get the ball rolling because I don't know how it would interpret that data and whether it would be detrimental rather than advantageous.
I understand, yeah. So for context, everyone that's here, Scott runs an amazing travel company. I'll give you a shout out, Scott. He's sending me to Indonesia next Tuesday, and I can't wait.
You've got to pay extra to come back. That's the new strategy there. So.
I think you look at this in a couple of different ways. So obviously every year, there's going to have a certain amount of customers that want to go on holiday at a certain time. It's difficult to predict that. It's different for everybody. There will always be key periods, probably based on your demographic. I imagine there's a demographic that have kids and their holiday period is very much around school holidays. And there's probably also a demographic around people that don't have children and are much more liberal around when they can take breaks. And maybe that changes their location that they may choose and the type of holiday that they have. So before getting stuck into the data, get into AI, I would suggest that you think more around like how you want to grow and what the numbers look like around how you want to grow. It could be that next year you want to sell 25% more holidays, or you want to book 100 more holidays and get that into a number. What you might be able to understand based on quite a few years trading is like typically seasonally how many trips get booked at certain times of the year. It might be that you have 50% of your trips always get booked between January and March, yeah, and then maybe 50% over the next 9 months, a little bit more ad hoc, which will help you then think around, right, if January to March is our big period, perhaps October, November, December of the previous year or the upcoming year is our peak campaign period. That's when we're going to be generating all of the engagement that we want to try and make sure that we're selling holidays in January, that we're going really hard and we're building up interest in those preceding months. January goes big, and then perhaps the later 9 months, maybe there's some like mini campaigns that you run throughout that period, or maybe you do it as kind of a business as usual, always on activity to support those period. Maybe there's a combination of reselling or upselling to previous customers, as well as kind of building up for the future campaign. So I would kind of look at try and break a big number of a year's growth targets down into phases. And then in those phases, start to think about the different types of customer groups that you've got within there.
We've got personas, so we've done that. So I think it's about probably trying to match up the personas with what people are buying and when, and the lead time, so that we can try and tie up campaigns that are likely to impact and resonate with people when they're ready to buy. I'm just always conscious when you've got a small data set, you don't know whether or not that data is
exactly
is actually valid or whether it's just arbitrary, because if you're only, if you're doing like a small number of sales per month, then small differences that might just be completely random can impact your data set. Whereas obviously when you get to a certain size, they probably balance out better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, completely agree with that. And I suppose that's where the combination of kind of anecdotal evidence and actual meaningful data is really useful.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else got any questions while we're together? Looks like a no. Cool. So a couple of things just to point you to. There's a couple of things that I'll share with you as a follow-up to this. We've got a nice ebook that we created, which is all around kind of campaign methodology. Talks you through a lot of what I've talked through today in more detail, and also is a useful kind of precursor for what we're going to be talking about next week. And next week. So everyone who's booked on today, we'll share the link with you for next week as well. It's kind of a 2-in-1 situation. And next week we'll be talking much more around designing a marketing plan. Okay, taking this kind of top level information, imagining you've done all this deep research and you've come up with some ideas. How do we turn that into a very tactical marketing plan to bring this to life? So we're going to be talking around kind of campaign methodology in general. And we're going to be talking around some tools to make that more manageable, make it useful, and make sure that you're on track for kind of delivering the results. So hopefully that'll be really useful, and I look forward to seeing you all then. But I suppose in the meantime, thanks for staying with me. I know we've moved quite fast. We're going to share the recording, so there may be some bits that you want to take away, and I'm going to share all these tools that I've shared with you. So go and have a play with them, and if you've got any questions about them, drop me an email, give me a call. I'm more than happy to talk you through it in a bit more detail, because I'm conscious that we went through things very fast today. So I hope you really found that useful. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for staying with us. Cheers, everyone. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, Mark.